Joining us now for World Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning, Adefemi.
Good morning, Dr. Vati. Good morning, Ayon. Good morning, Rufai.
Good morning.
Rufai, look at us, we're matching. Goodness gracious, I didn't notice. Would you look at that? Canary yellow. How beautiful.
Telepathy.
I mean, gosh, look at that. Let me tell you about what's happening around the world. Shall we begin in the United States, where 3 people, a teacher, a student, are among the people who've been killed in a shooting at the private Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin. The suspect, a 15-year-old female student, has also died by suicide, it's believed. The local police chief says that the shooting occurred in a study hall and was first reported to police by a 2nd grade student. Police arrived within 4 minutes. Detectives have talked with family members of the shooter and have searched her home as they work to determine a motive.
We're still working on a motive, trying to determine why this happened. We know that there is some information that may be circulating about the shooter. I cannot at this time formally tell you the age or gender or name of the shooter. We do not want to compromise any part of the investigation. We have 3 people who have lost their lives. 2 of those people were persons who were pronounced dead at the scene, and 1 while on the way to the hospital. Of the 6 injured and taken to local hospitals, 2 students remain in critical condition. Their injuries are life-threatening. A teacher and 3 other students were taken to area hospitals with non-life-threatening injuries. 2 of those victims, 2 of those survivors, have been released from the hospital.
We are so grateful, from the president up to the governor, the mayor. We have had so much support. This has obviously rocked our school community, but we know it affects not just our school community, but Madison and the greater area and all schools. And so our hope is that there will be some good that comes out of this as we can learn and grow and continue to support other schools.
Well, of course, we'll discuss that further, but let's move on now to Germany, where German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has lost a vote of confidence in Parliament. As a result, snap elections will take place on the 23rd of February 2025. Now, Scholz had expected to lose this vote, but his strategy for his party's survival depends on triggering an early election. He believes that that's his best chance of reviving the party's political fortunes. It's been 2 months since the collapse of Scholz's 3-party coalition government, which left the embattled chancellor leading a minority administration. And lastly, a New York judge has ruled that former President Donald Trump cannot claim presidential immunity to overturn his felony conviction. The decision marks a temporary setback for the president-elect, who is set to return to the White House in January and has recently secured a few wins, including the indefinite delay of his sentencing in the case. If you remember, a New York jury earlier this year found Trump guilty of 34 counts of falsifying business records to conceal a $130,000 hush money payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels in order to influence the 2016 presidential contest. The judge, who presided over the trial earlier this year, still has to decide, though, whether the trial should be dismissed due to Trump's upcoming inauguration, as Trump's lawyers have requested. Those are 3 of our main stories taking place around the world this morning.
Real quickly, I'll move over to Germany. Just like it happened in France, this government keeps collapsing. I mean, pretty much we saw it coming because the coalition was not going the way Olaf Scholz wanted it. Lots of people in the parliament did vote yesterday at the Bundestag. And, sorry about that. Yeah. And that didn't fall in his favor, vote of no confidence. What's probably going to happen is when they get a snap election, according to the opinion poll, the CDU is up, and the CDU is led by a guy called Friedrich Merz. He might probably, take the balance. Also, you have the Alternative for Deutschland and the Green Party and all of that. So probably there's a possibility that if it's going to go based on the opinion poll voting, probably might be a CDU government. So who might they now have a deal with, or a relationship with, owing to the fact that when you see the state elections recently that came out of Germany, Alternative for Deutschland did very, very well. Alice Weidel's party did very well. So that might also, take in the balance. So probably the Germans, very, very, very educated voters, I must say. They've got about 60% turnout. Maybe when they turn out, it might be some sort of a hang parliament, and the CDU might have to do a deal. But the socialists, which Olaf Scholz is from, it's not a good time for them at this point in time. I mean, it was a long time since the socialists became leader. I think the last socialist leader, if my memory serves, was probably Gerald Schroeder. But all of this is also whipped around the fact that the parties cannot agree. Also, the economic problems in Germany. If you look at the managers' index that came out of Germany, the manufacturing sector is not doing as great as it should be. There's a very big recession out there. Mm-hmm. Very sad one coming out of America. And you see, when I keep seeing cases like this of shootings and all of that, for me, it's also going back to the amendment in the American Constitution that gives them the right to bear arms. They say it's a constitutional right. The likes of the National Rifle Association will say, oh, it's your right to bear arms and all of that. But it keeps killing people. They said this lady had she had a manifesto against single men and said they were the problem of the world. I don't know when single men have become the problem of the world. All sorts of people can have all sorts of psychological problems, but having a society where it's easy to be able to own a gun and to be able to take this out on people that are suffering in society, I think that's one of the biggest challenges, and that's what I was playing. My commiserations to people.
Thank you, Rufai.
Really sad story coming in from Madison, Wisconsin. It's a small Christian or religious community, and the school itself, Abundant Life Christian School, is also a Christian school. The mayor had said that it hoped that this kind of day would never come in that community. Right. But I think one thing that's important is that the detectives or those who are investigating are trying to establish a motive. It doesn't usually happen. But it's also worthy of note that this is the 83rd killing, school shooting in the United States of America in 1 year, and the highest since at least records have been taken, in the United States. So again, brings just that conversation around gun crimes. How do we secure our schools? We talk about Safe School Initiative in Nigeria. Maybe we need a Safe School Initiative in the US as well, so that students are protected. Now to President Donald Trump. If this conviction is upheld, he'll be the first felon to be the US president. And what that means is that a lot of people are saying it's double standards, that in America, felons, it's often said that once a felon, always a felon. Correct. And that felons usually, even those who have come out of the prison system, find it very difficult to integrate back into society. So many of them don't get jobs. 30% of them, according to statistics, are unemployed. Some of them cannot travel freely across America. Some of them, their benefits are withheld from them. Some of them cannot vote in some states. So to see that you face this kind of discrimination because you're not rich, white, as some people have said, is glaring. So that's what some people are saying that. And there was a campaign where some people said, I'm a felon, so I should be just like my president. It's quite dicey. So it's interesting to see what will happen in the next few days.
Thank you, Ayo.
Okay, Germany first. The German Federal Republic was formed in 1949, 75 years ago. And in the course of those 75 years, a vote of confidence as a constitutional tool has been invoked only 4 times. In the course of those years, only Gerald Schroeder in 2001, 2005 invoked it twice. Now it's a double-edged sword. It doesn't always work. But let me jump in the history to Olaf Scholz. Olaf Scholz had a coalition, what is called the Ampere Coalition, with the Free Democratic Party and also the Green Party, which is own party, the Social Democratic Party, and they have the colors green, yellow, red. So that's why they are called the Traffic Light Coalition. But that Traffic Light Coalition collapsed in November, leading to the sack of the finance minister, Lindau, who left. Other ministers within the cabinet who had joined that coalition also left. Now leaving the ruling party with a minority status in the Bundestag. Now what Scholz has tried to do, also known as Scholzobots, because of his robotic look, Scholzomat rather, has done is to call for a vote of confidence. He was the one that called for the vote. Right. With the hope that, if you call for a vote of no confidence and you lose, it will trigger an election. So that's why the president, who was in Nigeria about a week ago, has now called for an election in February. Will he win? The results may be missed. Because in terms of popularity, his popularity has gone down, and then also there is a lot of infighting within the Bundestag. But if he wins, as did, Helmut Kohl, and also later after him, Helmut Schmidt, then it will be to his advantage to gain better legitimacy in terms of the politics. As for the Abundant Life Christian School, Well, it's ironic that a school that is named Abundant Life Christian School, is having this problem. Now, it's about gun violence in the United States. This year alone, K-12 violence, which studies this subject, says there have been a total of 300 shootings. In schools, there have been 38 shootings in schools, out of which 69 persons have been injured, 16 have died. Look at that, a 15-year-old, even in a school, in a K-12, school. Category school. As for Trump, well, what the prosecutors are asking for is that they will come back to the case even after Trump has left the office. He was convicted in May. Sentencing was scheduled for July.
Yes.
It was again moved to November 26, but he won the election on November 5. What they are saying, the status, as Judge Merchan has pointed out, is that this can still be done after he leaves office, after this second term that he has been able to secure. What shows you that eventually, despite the Supreme Court ruling, nobody is really above the law in the United States.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. All righty, let's move on to newspaper headlines across the globe. We begin here in Nigeria with the front cover of This Day. And this morning, This Day leads with the news of Shell's $5 billion investment in the Bonga North Deep offshore field. Now, Shell reportedly expects first oil production by 2030. The asset is set to produce 110 barrels per day. Gosh, I'm always falling over that word, which is Nigeria's first deep water oil project in over a decade. One, President Tinubu says, has underscored the transformative impacts of his policies and reforms in attracting investments in the oil and gas sector. Moving on to This Day's weekly legal insert, The Lawyer. As always, it features an article in The Advocate by Onikepo Braithwaite, who again weighs in on this Dele Farotimi's legal issues over alleged defamation, depicting a trial within a trial. That's what she calls it. Now, to the Daily Trust this morning, where the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has conducted its single largest bust on cryptocurrency and romance scam networks, arresting 193 foreigners and 599 Nigerian suspects right here in Lagos. The foreigners include Chinese, Filipino, Kazakh and Pakistani nationals, and the suspects reportedly operated from a 7-story building known as the Big Leaf Building on Oyinjolayemi Street in Victoria Island. On one floor, investigators were able to retrieve 500 local SIM cards allegedly used for these criminal purposes. Moving on to The Guardian this morning, and it leads with food inflation and how Nigerians are waiting for the federal government's food import duty waiver to come into effect. Food inflation in November 2024 rose to 39.93% on a year-on-year basis. That's up from 32.84% in November 2023. If we look at this month by month now, food inflation did increase slightly from 2.98% in October to 2.93%, from 2.98%, which we have now. That has, in October, is 2.93 essentially. The increase in food prices was attributed to higher costs of yam, rice, maize, and other staples, including vegetable oil and processed foods. To the New Telegraph this morning, and the New Telegraph is reporting on how private universities are struggling to cope with the high number of first-class graduates leaving their institutions, fueled by Nigeria's harsh economic conditions, and they are seeking clearly more academic excellence abroad rather than staying for postgraduate study in Nigeria. Higher energy costs are also hurting these institutions, according to their write-up. And there's been mixed reactions, according to the cover of this morning's Daily Sun, over plans by INEC to train Benin Republic electoral staff. A 12-member delegation arrived in Abuja on Monday for a study visit to INEC. They aim to gain insights into Nigeria's electoral processes to help manage 3 major elections scheduled to take place in Benin within 3 months. They have legislative and local elections in January 2026, followed by a presidential election in April 2026. Finally, The Punch has the FEC ordering final adjustments as President Tinubu is due to present the 2025 budget on Wednesday. Most UK papers this morning still have the fallout from that Chinese spy and his relationship with the Duke of York, Prince Andrew. But today's Daily Express has former NATO chief Lord Robinson telling Prime Minister Keir Starmer to boost, if we take a look at the Daily Express this morning, he has told Keir Starmer to boost defence spending or axe 20,000 troops. So those are our newspaper stories from
So,
the world.
I mean, it just shows that there's something wrong with the British intelligence system, because the man has finally been named,
The businessman,
the
yes.
spy, Teng Bong or something is his name. And the way at which he got in, the fact that it was unchecked, nobody could check through. He said he's been a business person facilitating trade between China and the UK, and has brought hundreds of millions of businesses and all of that. And this man sipped through the royal echelon, got into Prince Andrew, started collecting data, sat in front of heavy meetings, met all the top echelon in Britain, and he was a spy. I mean, pretty much reminds me of an espionage movies from the 60s. Probably you reckon a 007 movie, right?
One of them.
Maybe The Spy Who Loved Me.
There's that.
Or
I don't know
Doctor-
who he loved, though. It might have been the Duke of York, to be honest.
The Spy Who Loved Doctor Who. I mean, it's just very funny. But I think they should clamp down on this, and as much as possible, they should see to the end of all of this and never get the man into the UK again, please.
All right, so I'll be going to the Guardian newspaper, food inflation, and that's it's something we've talked about a number of times. It's concerning, one of the biggest drivers of headline inflation in itself. But what is worrying about this this report is that the announcement by the government in July 8th to be specific, about zero waiver for some food items has not come into effect. And that's why there's such a mistrust or distrust of government announcements, programs, policies. I said it earlier when we were talking about the budget, that for us to have at least very good budget performance, we must monitor projects that have been highlighted or outlined in the budget. How can we have an announcement that was hailed in many quarters as being progressive and hopefully would impact food prices not being implemented? It would be great for Nigerians to hear why. What were the bottlenecks? Wasn't it well thought out? Did they find out there were challenges when it was time to implement? And so these are the things. We just come out, have bold headlines, make big announcements, yet no implementation. 5 months, almost 6 months down the line. But analysts have even said that beyond the food waiver, zero waiver on food, some food importation, is that if we make these policies, but we don't invest in agriculture, we have only about 1% of the budget to agriculture, we're still not going to see a reduction in food prices. Why? They're saying that if they flood the market with a lot of these food items, it might discourage the local producers. But the local producers are not incentivized to even produce more. We've talked about the challenges in the agricultural value chain and how, aside from security, even storage facilities, produce, fertilizers, support for the farmers. If we don't have this, we can continue to have waivers, but we will still continue to see the prices increase. As at the time they announced this waiver till now, about 50% increase in food prices. It's not working, and it's unfortunate that they make these big announcements without a follow-through as to implementation. And so a lot of people are spending more money on food.
Thanks, Ariel.
Let me deal with the issue of the alleged spy.
Okay.
It's a story on most of the front pages of the newspapers in the UK today. His name is Yang Tengbo, and he likes to go with the alias Christopher. And he's said to be the main business representative of the Duke of York, Prince Andrew, in China, running an operation called Peach at Palace in China, a Dragon's Den style, enterprise. And the MI5 had discovered that this man, is allegedly a spy. Incidentally, he has denied. The latest development is that the National Security Court yesterday decided to give directives that his identity should be revealed. And now the British people have his identity. Now, two fallouts from this. You recall that last month, Prime Minister Keir Starmer met with President Xi Jinping, and he has been talking about a strategy of negotiation and cooperation with China. Now, security chiefs are now saying that should not happen. Ministers are saying that is not happen. That it's not only Yang Tengbo that you have getting close to the seat of power, but that there are many Chinese spies at all levels of the British establishment. So much that Tengbo got to the heart of this British establishment. They said he met previously with Donald Cameron, met previously with Theresa May, took pictures with John Prescott, who knows the extent. But Keir Starmer is saying, well, China, for political and economic reasons, cannot be isolated. Now, the other leg of it is that Prince Andrew has finally agreed not to go to Sandringham I hope the
Sandringham Palace.
Sandringham Palace.
Sandringham even. We just call it Sandringham.
Whatever it is. Sandringham. Because, you know, he has been advised not to do so.
Yes.
In order not to embarrass the monarchy. And it was Sarah Ferguson that advised him to just step down. So these are
I love me some Fergie, to be honest. She's always been one of my favorites.
So these are the big issues involved in that.
Divorced her already.
It doesn't matter.
They have such an interesting,
wonderful relationship.
Andrew and Fergie, they've been divorced for years, about 20 years.
They are still together. They are still.
And she still holds influence over him.
She's the mother of his children.
Long live Fergie.
There are many mothers of children that I don't understand their relationship.